Hello, in this video I'm going to go through a simple explanation of how GitHub works, but when you're using GitHub simply as a place to store your own code, and you're the only contributor to this Git repository. So let's just kind of start by just explaining what GitHub is. Really simply GitHub is a location where people can store code online and has all sorts of great tools for keeping track of changes, collaborating, developing as a team. It's a really wonderful resource. And the first step to using it is putting your code there. So in some subsequent videos, I'm actually going to show how to do this, but right now I just want to give you a picture of what kind of is happening between the GitHub repository, which is on the internet, and your computer. So the first thing you need to do is you need to go to GitHub and you need to create what's called a repository. So for example, I might go onto GitHub and create this repository called year9design_misp. And I'm going to initialize it with a file, which is a README file. So you can think of a repository as kind of like a directory on a computer, but this directory exists up in GitHub. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go to your computer and you're going to make a folder of some sort. I called my folder Git repo. So this is where I store all the different GitHub repositories that I might want to use on this computer. But the issue we have here is that there's no connection between these. This folder has no way of knowing about this repository on GitHub. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clone this repository into this directory. And so to do that, you need to open up a terminal window at the Git repo folder. And at this point, we're going to use a bunch of what are called Git commands. If you're running a Mac OS, Git comes installed with terminal, so it should run. You might type in Git and get some sort of update request. Just go ahead and do that. But essentially, the first thing we need to do is we need to clone this repository on our computer. Now remember I said that this repository has a URL link. So I'm going to copy that from the GitHub site, and then I'm going to type in the command git clone and then paste that URL. And that connects this GitHub repository with this directory. But it does more than that. It actually copies all the contents of that repository onto your computer as a new folder in that drive. So once I type in that command, I'm going to get year9design_misp along with that README file. Now there's a very important distinction here. This is not like Dropbox or Google Drive, where these are syncing constantly. When we clone a repository, we're making a copy of all of the information in here. So if I make some changes on my personal computer, GitHub won't know unless I tell it. Likewise, if I make some changes in GitHub, I'm not going to know about that unless I pull those changes down. And we'll talk about what that looks like in a moment. In our situation, I'm talking about a case where you are the only person acting as a contributor to this GitHub repository, so you really don't have to worry too much about changes being made that you don't know about. Okay, so we need to run some other Git commands, but we don't want to do it in Git repo. We want to do it inside this new directory on your computer. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to actually change the directory. So you do cd year9design_misp. And now what I want to do is I want to imagine a situation where somehow this GitHub repository had some new file put into it. Now remember, these don't sync automatically. So if you went onto your GitHub site and you actually put in a new file, that new file wouldn't immediately show up on your computer. You have to run a command to get that file. The command you would run here is git space pull. So what pull does is pull will take a look at everything that is different on the GitHub repository compared to your personal computer, and then it will pull all of that content down onto your computer, updating your copy. Now, the thing to be aware of is you'll see in a minute if it's the reverse where I put a file on my personal computer and then want to send that to the repository, there's a way to check if the repository and my personal computer match. There's not an easy command at this stage to really check if they match. So in other words, if you do git pull, just be aware that it's going to pull everything from your GitHub repository into this folder. Okay, so let's imagine something here. So if I type in this command git status, this is a really useful command. You're going to get basically a message that says your personal computer matches the repository. There is no difference. And that's not just difference in terms of the number of files. We're talking about difference in content. That means this README is identical to this README. This new file is identical to this new file. But let's imagine I go and write a Hello World program in Python. And again, I write that all set. And now if I do a git status, I'm going to get a message that says there is a difference between your personal computer content and the GitHub site. So this is where we have to write a couple commands to tell our computer to kind of take what is on our personal computer and take that information to update the repository. And there are 3 commands we need to be familiar with when we do this. The first thing we need to do is we need to add the changes to basically to think of it like adding it to a message that we're going to send from our computer to GitHub. And we can do that in one and two ways. We can add files individually, so I could say git add helloworld.py, but sometimes I have multiple files that I'm working with. So if I just do git add space period, that's going to add all of the files that are different, count for all the changes. The next thing we need to do is we need to commit that. So we type in git space commit -m, and then we write some message. You know, it could be something like added hello world file. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to do git.push. And what git space push, pardon me. And what git push does is it now says, okay, you've added something to this message, you've committed that you want to change it with this message, and now you're going to send that up into the repository. So now the repository is synced with these two, with my personal GitHub site. So once I've done this git.push, if I do git.status again, I keep saying dot, git space status again, what it's going to do is say, you guys match. And that is the basic functionality of a simple GitHub repository, and it will allow you to kind of work on your computer, but keep that working, keep your work up on the internet live and accessible. It's really beneficial because if you happen to be on a different computer, it's just a few clicks away to go to the internet, grab all your work, and pull it down. If you take a look in the next video, we're actually going to do this exact situation and set this up on this computer here. I hope this video helped. Have a great day.